Good evening and welcome to Mindful Conversations. My name is Dr. Lori Monaco from Align Yourself, Inc. I am a life coach specializing in transformation and mindfulness practice. I am also known as the Badass Buddha, and I am so glad you are here this evening. Once again, I have such a beautiful, beautiful spirit of an individual that I'm going to have a lovely conversation with tonight. And this is a great subject that we're going to talk about tonight because this is what everybody needs to do. It's getting rid of clutter, specifically digital, but we're not going to limit ourselves to that. So I would like to introduce to you Irene Williams, hailing from Tennessee. She is a strong, driven, insightful woman. And let me read her beautiful bio. Over 10,000 phone photos, 4 email accounts, she must be talking about me, with 10,000 of messages, dozens of social accounts between personal and professional life, and 100% overwhelmed, ... Oh my gosh, I'm just overwhelmed even saying it. It was at this make or break point that digital marketer and business owner Irene Williams developed a system to declutter, organize, and manage her digital life. I'm in love with her already. The solutions she created immediately improved her day-to-day productivity and peacefulness, and long-term proved to be effective and sustainable. Now, Irene is sharing the system in her digital decluttering course. The course addresses all aspects of digital life: email, social, phone use, photos, files, even virtual meetings. Her practical approaches get to the heart and mind of the matter so you can experience lasting change and gain translatable skills to help in other areas of your life. Example, buy forever extra 20 pounds, which that's what I'm working on right now. Beyond her passion for helping people cut the clutter and get to what really matters, Irene continues to lead client accounts through her digital marketing firm, Message to Market LLC, speaks at national conferences, and is an author and contributing writer for trade publications. Her online digital decluttering course, which we will mention towards the end again, launches soon, and you can message her at Irene at messagetomarket.com, and I will put that in the comments so that we can get that down. But I before we get started, usually I just do the bio. I want to add the additional info that Irene sent me because I think it really speaks volumes of how we're going to have the conversation tonight, and it gives a lot of insight into her as an individual, which is really what this program is all about. So this is what she said about herself. She said, "I have never categorized my difficult personal experiences as traumas. I identify them as the kind of stuff for which most of us get our turn by merit of walking this earth for a while: broken relationships, job challenges, illness, death. These are parts of the human experience that are by nature emotionally taxing, disruptive to the familiar and expectations, and challenging to perspectives and beliefs. Thankfully, they have also been evolutionary in my understanding of compassion for myself and others, and revolutionary in that they have compelled growth, positive through often hard-earned change, and several times wonderful new chapters and opportunities. These experiences are defining moments in my life, but I choose not to be defined by them. In all instances, the anguish has been accompanied by exponential transformation," love the word, "deepened compassion, and stronger faith. Divorce after 5 years of marriage at 27 as a result of infidelity, unexpected death of my dad just a year after I got divorced, stepping into a new role with my mom after she was widowed, unexpected death of a most dear friend who left behind her young family, the jarring of a comfortable career path during the infamous recession of 08-09, taking on the role of life admin caregiver to my mother in her last year of life." And then she put, "The last situation with my mom is what led me to conquer the digital clutter in my life. As a matter of fact, I can share now how this connects with what we speak about today." So thank you, Irene. And I love that. I thank you so much for being here. I love the bio on people, but that piece, as soon as you sent that to me, and mind you, she sent it to me last minute because I was last minute. And it was so powerful that that I had to add that, because it really speaks about the humanness of the individual, and the fact that, mindful conversations it's about mindfulness, but it's about people getting to know the story behind a person and seeing that, we're not alone, and that we all have our challenges, we all have our triumphs, and we all have our path. And it's great to just see like the challenges that we have at any age, and then we will pull through. So welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being on.
Oh my, so honored to be here. Thank you. Thank you.
So what else could you say about, like, how did all of that, like, just, I mean, this is a question I'm going to ask in a little while, like, how is your past well, let's ask it now, actually. How past created your present? How have you looked at your life and then look at who you are today? How is
My
that?
goodness. Well, truly, as you list the things that I've been through, they're kind of very notable, big life circumstances amongst, the mundane and everyday. All the dots end up connecting. The path is bumpy, but it is leading somewhere. And I'm very thankful that from a young age, perhaps wisdom beyond years, it is part of my faith, but I trusted that even when crap was happening, that I was going to learn from it and get something on the other side. And I always say, like when I was going through cheating husband drama in my late 20s, and I'm face down on the bath mat, breathing in carpet fibers, that I also knew in the back of my brain, I always touch the back of my brain. And as I get into neuroscience as a geek in my adult life, I'm so fascinated by that. But I just knew back there, like, this is going to serve a purpose. There's going to be another side. And that kept me sane, because I was very broken during something like that. Was unexpected, and it was kind of awful. If you've ever been through something like that, you know what I mean.
I have
Yeah.
twice.
Yeah. It's so crushing. And yet there was that part of me that knew this is going to get me somewhere else that I was meant to be. So truly I'm so thankful even for the hard parts, because truly, like, I had a great growing up, a fairly traditional family. I loved to go to school. I had great like-minded friends. So then suddenly when life handed me that adventure that I'm
Yes.
describing, the infidelity and divorce, that was so not on script, honestly, it was not in long order past that I was so thankful to have been taken off script, because I think I would have been really bored with the path that if it had stayed the course. And to look at where I am now, and my amazing, precious husband, in a marriage that is just beyond a gift. And it took a long time. I mean, I was single for a lot of years after what I went through, but totally worth the wait. A recession that crushed a pretty comfy work from home, have a cool job kind of situation, and suddenly all that's wobbly, and it forces me to launch my own business. And hello, I was totally meant to do that. So it all works out, going through stuff like the loss of my dad unexpectedly, and having already been through a divorce. So suddenly my mom was widowed, and she has since passed away, but I was able to be more empathetic and compassionate for her being suddenly single at a time in life when most of her friends still had their spouses, because of what I had just been through. So, like, I'm so thankful that I had that perspective. Like, everything serves a purpose, and I don't
Yes.
walk through life, like, I mean, when it's happening, I mean, you bear the weight of it. I'm not trying to sound like a Pollyanna, but I am living proof that everything can connect, and so when you're aware of that and you bring that into circumstances, because we can't control what's going to happen. Obviously, as we're recording this, and I'm sure people will watch it long after, but we're in the thick middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. Nobody planned that. Nobody was expecting that. Dear goodness, but the undergirding of trust and faith that it's all going to lead somewhere, at least, can help get us through. And then the life skills that we acquire when we go through stuff, that we can apply in these unexpected moments. I mean, to kind of segue perhaps into the main topic of today, I'm so thankful I had landed in COVID-19 and pandemic drama, having my digital life decluttered. Because, and then the subsequent benefit of same life skills applying to maintaining my weight and not having that as an issue, because the burden of having to be here where we are in this moment as we're recording, but have digital clutter burdening me and wishing I could drop the extra 20 pounds would really add to the pain of what we're dealing with. And so I'm alleviated of those things, so I can divert my mental energies and my efforts to things that are actually more meaningful and more relevant in the moment. And that's part of what I really felt led to share, what I had kind of inadvertently created, a system that worked so well, because I'm like, we can't predict what life is going to throw at us.
Yeah.
And if we can at least have these skills in place and have these things that we can manage conquered, we're going to come from more of a position of strength. So I want to help people do that, because I'm so thankful for on my own behalf, that I did, because I'd look back and there are times where, you read my list, and my mom did pass away, and I spent a year of my life basically being administrator of her life. I moved her from out of state to the state that I live in, put her in assisted living. So I was not physically there constantly caregiving. I was very much part of her caregiving team, but I was administering her life and all her property and everything. And I was dealing with my own digital clutter at that time, and it was getting worse and worse. So on the other side of my mama drama, and after she passed, I realized part of why I was still feeling so deeply sad, obviously sad about losing my mom, but I was mentally weighed down by the circumstances that had gotten thicker during that year that I was dealing with all that was going on with her. So that is what compelled me. That's how those dots connect, because I literally had a moment in this very room on the little couch to my right, where I was sitting there barely getting any work done because of the archaeological dig that was my email inboxes. And I was like, something's got to give, yo.
Yeah.
I got to wrangle this, or I'm going to be in a vortex that I can't get out of if I didn't deal with it in that moment. So
Yeah,
that's kind of
that's what you do is when you declutter, you, at least with mental declutter specifically, but physical decluttering is the same thing. It's you open space, so you make space, and so if you do it mentally, you're making space. And while we could label it and say digital clutter, physical clutter, it inevitably causes mental clutter. I mean, it always does. And so and you could still have your own mental clutter on top of all that other stuff. And the moment that you clear it and you make space, it gives you space for other things. Like, so for you, the decluttering opened up opportunities because it opened up the space for creativity. It opened up the space for letting things in, and one of the things that we're going to talk about, absolutely tonight. So before we do, so let me ask you, so you are a wife, a dog mom. We were in the green room prior to starting that. We were talking about our dogs and our dog adventures. You are a friend to yourself and others, which I thought was such a beautiful way of putting it. Business owner and entrepreneur, family member, group leader, board member, speaker, author, and punster, which you're going to have to elaborate a little bit on that. What do you do to ground yourself and create balance? What else do you do besides decluttering?
Well, can I be very honest? I mean, that step was an immense help in actually for me being able to answer that question with any legitimacy and integrity, because I am by nature somebody I can shut off work. That is other than when I launched my own business, there was a season of time there where I was working on Saturday nights, because there was that push and that entrepreneurial gotta bust a move. But I did get through that season. So I'm fundamentally wired that I get that we got to step away, but truly in this era in which we live, when we're constantly holding devices and on devices and all that kind of thing, I couldn't necessarily truly feel the alleviation of mental clutter because we're constantly in input mode, in this age in which we live. I mean, again, I'm prior to digital decluttering. I mean, I could I love to run. So go for a run by myself and I don't take when I go running other than to have my phone on me in case there were an issue. But I'm not somebody that runs with earbuds in or anything like that. So, I mean, I've used those kinds of things, or going on a walk with my husband, or I mean, frankly, the way I'm wired, I can sit alone in a room and just have my thoughts. I'm very
Yeah.
thankful.
Yes, me
I'm really
too.
good at napping. I'm totally good at it. If I could get paid to sleep, I'd be very wealthy. By nature, and my name Irene means peace in Greek, and I've always thought, I'm generally a peaceful person. So that's why I think it became so very clear to me at that point in my life, like, what is up? And it was somewhat of a revelation that day to realize how much my digital clutter was affecting my mental organization, and that I needed to make a change. On the flip side of that, again, those skills that I somewhat inadvertently grew or applied or discovered in that process, so apply across so many aspects of life. And it truly, I mean, feels so much more balanced and have so much more room. Just the logistics of alleviating crazy thick email inboxes. I get so much more done in less time. It's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, and that's the biggest, people are always talking about, I want to earn more money, but they don't ever, and I got to say we, because I have to include myself on this, is that we don't always look at our time necessarily as money. And whenever we waste the time, whenever we're always working, harder, not smarter, including little pieces like that, all these little pieces add up. And before you know it, you're in the thick of it, and you have this huge piece of wasted time. And you're like, how did that even happen? How do you think, like, in your observations as you sort of came to this conclusion, like how to declutter digitally, and what you discovered about yourself and even, clients and stuff, how do you think, what happens? Like, how is it that we get to that level? How is it that it just slips by us so easily to where we get so overwhelmed like that?
Right. We are living in the exponential future right now. So in this century, we will have the equivalent of 20,000 years of technological advancement compared to the last entire century. So it's like, it's nuts. What we created this beast as human beings. We were brilliant and we developed all this fabulous technology, and now we're overwhelmed by it. So it is completely understandable that any and all of us would at some point feel a level of overwhelm with any of our digital technology. And because we use it every day, it's fundamental to how we communicate, it's how we do business, it's how we order things and receive information. Nobody should ever beat themselves up and go, what in the what, how did that happen? You are a human being, and this is a lot of stuff.
It is.
And as much as we did evolve to be able to create all this stuff, our brains did not catch up in terms of the
Nope.
ability to
Yes, not at
absorb
all.
it. Not at all.
Yeah.
So that, cut yourself a break and know that you're not alone, but truly embrace that fact and realize that your brain is functioning properly, that you would feel overwhelmed by all of this. A year before I digitally decluttered, in the thick of the year where I was dealing with my mom was still alive, and I awoke at like 2:30 in the morning, and it was one of those where I woke up and it was like, bing, I'm fully, the electricity is firing. And so I habitually, in the middle of the night, went for my phone and clicked on Facebook. And in that the wee hours of the morning, I'm on Facebook, and in a matter of seconds, I've seen a story on human trafficking. I've seen a cat video. I've seen what a girl I barely know from high school had for lunch, and something else had. And, and I literally, this is common sense basically, but in that moment I was like,
Yeah.
my brain was not wired to receive so much disparate information in
Yeah.
such quick fashion. That's not good for me. And there I was in the middle of a very trying, taxing year dealing with my mom. And so, and it was an election year. So lots of drama online related to that. So I began a pullback from social media for personal use. Now, I have a digital marketing firm. About 85% of what we do that really brings in the income is manage social media. So I come to this where I'm not going to detox. I can't step away. I can't deactivate accounts. I got to be there. This is part of my livelihood. So, but for me personally, I can definitely put the reins on it. So in 2016, I stepped back quite a bit from social media use for myself. So that was a precursor to what was going to happen the year in 2017 after my mom passed away. But yeah, so again, it is completely reasonable that any one of us would be overwhelmed by this, and it's just it's kind of. And I actually really enjoy physical decluttering. I've worked from a home office since the year 2000. So because I'm here in my home so much and have been for so long, I got really good. It's a learned skill. I was not an organized kid growing up. I was a stacker. I had stacks everywhere. They were neat, but they were stacks. So as an adult, being around my stuff so much, I got really good at purging. About a couple of times a year, I get the urge to purge and like, what can I get rid of? What closet can I organize? So the principles of physical space decluttering, in much of it can and does apply to digital decluttering. So I already kind of had that skill. I was doing the Marie Kondo thing before she was on the scene, y'all. When I got her book in
She stole
2014,
that info. She stole
she
that from
really,
you.
I read her book in 2014. I was like, I'm doing all that. Sounds so smug, but I really was like, I'm in a good place. And I even love to talk about it, which is why I bought her book. And then I decluttered and got rid of the book because I was all good. But yeah, so
That's
hey,
funny.
let's apply those skills of practical use. But yeah, so but what has happened for me when I created my process for digital decluttering, I had more time. And so now I had time like for fun. I study neuroscience. And so understanding how the brain receives information,
Nice.
like all that I was common sense going, I was not supposed to be on social media at 2:30 in the morning,
Yeah.
reading all those disparate stories. Like now I understand on a very surface level. I acknowledge I'm not a neuroscientist, but I'm somebody who can read a lot about it and at least gain enough understanding, go, aha, this is why, So again, I always tell people, you feel assured when you're struggling with something repetitively. That's actually your brain kind of working like expectedly, like it's supposed to. But we
Yeah.
do have that ability with that prefrontal to step out in front and lead like that 97% of your brain that is going to go on autopilot and grab the phone and go to Facebook. You can step in
Yes.
front. You
And
can
it's
lead
and
you.
it's and it's interesting, you said you used a great choice of words. You said the habitual, like that you grabbed it and grabbed that phone and habitually went on to Facebook. And it's you and I are probably pretty close in age, and there was a time where we didn't have, there was no cell phones. It's like when you would leave work, you would say, I'll call you when I get home, and you really meant it. Like there was no other, like nothing to do in the car. And when cell phones did come on, you didn't use them that much because they were so expensive. You didn't have any type of data. I mean, I remember the first time I sat on my computer and used a like Internet Explorer. I was like, oh, wow, this is very cool. Like I can actually do things on the computer, And now everything is so instantaneous. And so it just shows you that even those of us that weren't raised that way, we still transition and it becomes habit forming. And so yes, any transformational like coach, any life coach will tell you, do not keep your phone next to your bed, and unless you can really be in charge of it, like really be very conscious of it. I do keep mine next to my bed. I do not first thing as soon as my alarm goes off, because I use it for my alarm, I use it for meditating, sometimes for music, but not always. But I do not habitually go on and look at my social media, check my text messages. I don't do any of that stuff. But in the beginning I did. And so I would have to keep the phone away and make myself get up. And I would get mad because then I want to put the snooze on. But then once I got past it, I started to, it's a conscious choice. It's using that area of your brain that says, okay, we need to reprogram, because we don't need that. You don't need to see this right at this moment. You don't need to check your email. And then now let's get into the chunky part for you, because this is, so the title of the conversation tonight is teaching people to declutter digitally and beyond. So let's talk really quickly. We started to already, but let's just talk really quickly about the types of clutter, whether it's digital or not, and then why this is so important, even especially now, like not just in the past, but even especially now with everything that's happening in our world. So let's first talk about tell everybody what you define as the clutter in our lives, and then let's talk about why we need to get rid of it.
I love this topic, and to articulate it all in this moment, I think clutter can be anything that gets in the way of us going for what really matters to us. And that can be, obviously, in my story, digital was a huge mountain to get over to the other side. A year after that, truly, I'd used the same construct, the mental construct, and I'm somebody who always dances with a little few extra pounds. Sometimes I'm down, sometimes I'm up, and the next year, because I had more room in my life, I was able to divert energy and conquer that. And so I'm 2 years past that, and that is it's fascinating, because I've spent most of my life with that an issue, and now it's not. And I can't even begin to tell you the amount of mental energy that I have to divert to more meaningful things. So when I think of clutter, because I find that I use that word a lot, it truly is almost a symbolic word of what is bringing you down, what is diverting your attention that really is conquerable, that would allow you to finally go for it. And then in a business sense, I apply that to, I see this a lot. And I have clients and ongoing relationships, but every now and then I get small business or owners or entrepreneurs who reach out and just need some advice. And so, I'm often saying, pick a logo and move on. They'll have clutter in their business process, and they'll fixate on something that's really not going to be a make or break on their business, because it's kind of scary to go for the bigger thing. So if you can declutter your brain and conquer smaller decisions, it's going to free you up on the other side. So it's a common theme in everything that I talk about. And as I start to attempt to articulate, because I'm working on these online courses to share, how do I summarize what I'm trying to do here? And it really comes down to, what do you need to declutter? Let's get rid of it, and then you can get on to the stuff that really matters. And I'm walking, living proof of it, man. And, obviously I've come to a place where I've put a framework around it and courses to explain it and help others. But we've all had these moments in our lives where we've been able to conquer things, and if we can tap into those moments, we can realize they're translatable for other moments as well. So we've all got it in us, it's just becoming aware of it.
When you've worked with people to help declutter, I find that most people, and I'm including myself on this, that clutter we complain about it, but at the same time, we almost like having it there because it helps us avoid what we really need to focus on. And so we use that as an excuse. And I remember very clearly when I was in chiropractic school, and we would have, finals, midterms, whatever, and I was supposed to be studying, and my house was always spotless clean during midterms and finals, because I would sit down on my couch, or I would sit down on my bed, or wherever I was studying, And then I would look out and be like, oh my God, that big pile there, I got to deal with this right now. And it gave me permission to avoid studying. Like I was
Yes.
not mentally ready to study. And then there would be a time where everything would be clean enough and then I would be ready to study. But I've seen that with me, myself. I've seen that with family members, friends, where they will be so focused on their emails and going through stuff. And I will say, okay, but I thought you said you were going to work on this. And they're like, oh, well, I have to do this first. And in my head, I'm thinking, do you really have to do that first? Like, is that, and so, and because I have to get rid of it, or, I have to deal with this right now. So, have you noticed that too, that sometimes, like, do your clients sometimes, or the individuals that you're helping, is there like this emotional connection to not want to get rid of that clutter that like
Oh,
challenge them?
100%. We're wired to go back to the familiar, even when the familiar can be detrimental. So,
Yes.
and also we'll divert to the thing because our brains, a fundamental function is our brains want to be efficient. And so it's easier to deal with this side issue over here or keep going back to the same issue or yada, yada, because to get to the other side of that, that's a bigger thing. That's a bigger, more mentally taxing thing on the other side. So it is so our nature to stick with those smaller, more familiar, redundant issues. And I totally see it. I mean, literally, I know I alluded to, was working with somebody recently, and she has a really great logo. She's had it for over a year, and she's getting ready to launch a website. And now she's questioning her logo. And because then if she keeps fussing with the logo, it's delaying
Yes. Yep.
the web,
Right.
that's just a very small example, but we can all relate to those things. And I look back, I know, and it's never, typically it's not intentional. I didn't want to keep dancing with those same 15, 20 pounds my whole life, but I look back, and now that I'm on the other side of that, I mean, in a fascinating way. And I know, because at other points in my life, I would have told you I was past it too, but it was really just long-term behavior modification. It wasn't the changing of the mind that's happened at this point, but it really took so much of my valuable energy. Oh, dang. What a
Yeah.
way, so like, it didn't propel me forward. I kept, that vortex, that spin in the same place. And yeah, so it's so common. It's so natural for,
And the funny thing is that when you're out of the vortex, like when you've figured it out and you start creating positive habits, and you're changing those things for the better, you look back and you say, why didn't I do this sooner? And why was this so hard? But when you're in the vortex, it is so hard to break the habit. And you hear quotes like, oh, it's 21 days to change a habit. And that's actually found, the research has found that's not true. It
right.
depends on the habit. Some
Mm-hmm.
take a week. Sometimes it could take 21 days. Sometimes it can take 90 days, And I think a lot of it has to do with, what's the real deep set cause of all this? Like why do we have so much clutter? Is it because we're trying to avoid getting out of that, out of our comfort zone and really stepping in? And then once you do, and you're brave enough to do it, and you start getting rid of all of it, and you see what's out there, when you move all of that and you create that space. And I think some people just sort of worry that they're going to get there and they're going to realize that they're not all that, like that they're not as great as they thought they were, or they're not playing, they're afraid to play big. And I get that
Mm-hmm.
totally. I mean, that was me as well. But it's a constant. Like, for instance, when you help somebody declutter digitally, it's got to affect other elements of their life, which means that they have to be conscious of that. They have to make the choice to say, I'm going to keep going with this, because it's transformational. So it's lifelong, and it's constantly making the effort to step up in your life. So have you ever had any clients that it brought up a lot of stuff for them emotionally, like that they've confided in you, or
Well, to be honest,
saw?
the way I approach this is basically we kind of start there. We do not start with, here's an app that helps you unsubscribe to all your undesired, these are not digital decluttering hacks and here's the latest apps and whatever. We actually, like, if you're going to come along on this ride with me, we're going to start at a pretty deep place, because that's where the transformation is going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
And then the process, because there is a lot of hard work to actually getting rid of the clutter, then that becomes almost like we create the roots before we get to the fruit of the digital decluttering. And that's, so much of that is also that be kind and good to yourself and understand you are sometimes working against your own brain that wants
You
to
know,
protect you, you know? So yeah, so we go there first, actually. I'm not trying to like unearth the deep, dark things. I just want people to understand what's going on with them and stop. Because I know a lot of people, not just to digital decluttering, but whatever it's cluttering their life, and they wear it like it's a moral failure, and they judge themselves and why can't I do this? And so there should be none of that for this to work. That kind of thinking gets you zilcho nowhere. We don't
yes.
do that anymore. You know, we understand our brains, we understand ourselves, and we cut ourselves a break. But then we also promote ourselves to CEO so that we can get going effectively, and also acknowledge that this tension is a part of the human experience. I'm on the other side, but I'm certainly not claiming that it is, that I'm issue free in these areas that I feel like I've really made phenomenal headway. I mean, I'm a human being walking this earth, and I got all this wiring in here that was, some of it, you know, goes back to, you know,
Oh,
how I was
yes. Old
involved, you
wiring.
know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes.
But having compassion for yourself, and then obviously when you really have compassion for yourself, you're able to have compassion for others too, and that just translates into beautiful things happening beyond your own particular issues. But man, conquering or getting through these issues for yourself, I mean, I have more time to care about other people, you know, taking care of, I often say, when you do what's right for you, you do what's right for everyone else. And a great example is that day where I was sitting on that couch over there. It was the middle of a work week. Clients needed me. New emails were coming in. And I knew in that moment I had to hit pause on everything else and deal with this, because that's what I needed. And on the flip side, little did I know, that was the best thing I could have ever done for any of my clients or for my husband or my friends, because getting that in order and getting past that in a meaningful way for real, I'm more productive, I'm more available, I'm more responsive, I'm more thorough as I have the ability to be. So yeah, so I chased a rabbit, I think, but I hope it made sense, you know, where I was
No,
with that.
no, that was that. No, that's great because, you know, it's true. It's like, I think we don't do that enough. We don't give ourselves the compassion, and we do one of two things. We either wear it proudly. Oh yes, I'm my email's a mess and my house is a mess. And it's just out of control and I'm not going to deal with it. You know, they either, it's that side, or it's the side that I can't get it under control and that it's overwhelming and it'll never be that way and I just must be a failure at this. And we wallow in it, and sometimes it just takes that one person such as yourself to sort of just say, okay, listen, you know, we all get that way, so let's take it one step at a time and back you out of it and then get you to where you need to be, if that is exactly where you need to be. Because if you're saying that because you did it correctly by sort of dealing with the emotional part first, you're getting to it before you start making all the effort into decluttering, and then the person starts to hesitate. They're like, uh-oh, you know, it's
Yeah.
clean out, and then now it starts to hit them. Because no matter what it is, whether it is your clutter, it is your weight, it is your success or lack thereof, or finances or lack thereof, it all comes down to how you view yourself, what your beliefs are, what your habits are. You know, years ago when I lived down south, there was a lady who used to advertise for this weight loss clinic that she had. And I always remembered her catchphrase. Her catchphrase said, they had all these different things available. it was a medical-based weight loss clinic. And she would end her commercial by saying, "It's not what you're eating, it's what's eating you." And I just always thought that was so brilliant. Anyway, but it's true. It's if unless you get down to what it is and let it go, then because you could help them declutter, and then they're going to reclutter everything back up again.
Yeah, exactly.
In a short period of time.
I have no interest in helping people with behavior modification of that nature. If that's all you're looking for, go to Google and say, how do I clean out my inbox? How do I manage my smartphone? And you will find fabulous lists of tips and tricks and yada yadas, and you'll apply them briefly, and then you will return to old habits.
Yes.
That is so there. That is not why this worked for me. And it truly happened by accident. But what I was doing in the moment when I decluttered my own life was I was using past the skills I had acquired in other ways. And one of them is deciding in advance is such a powerful thing to do. So in that day that I started, focusing on this, I was like, what can I handle? What is going to be I'm going to decide in advance how many emails can live in my inbox without my brain starting to hurt, those kind of things. So that's why I'm saying, no, I happened to come to it at a place very unconsciously and yet somewhat consciously, how I knew I worked and what I needed. So that's why I want to start there with the folks that I work with, is because we really need to dive into that. And again, I'm not asking you to, open your underwear drawer and tell me all your dark secrets. I'm asking you to know you and use all that, like the CEO of your brain that's going to be able to do this long term, because that's why, that's the coolest thing. I knew in very short order that I had done something amazing. And so because I had more time, I was able to go, why is this working so well? And so I reverse engineered it. And that's when I had more time, and I started absorbing all this great information about how our brains work, and just so valuable to understand these things. And so then go, aha, that's why this worked so well. And now I can, because I don't have to know everything, but I do want to have, when I'm coming to something, I want to have some level of understanding. I'm natured to ask why. And so what I bring to the table is I'm going to tell you why, and why your brain does that, and why you do that. And then we apply the how, It's the only way it works. I have zero interest. Like, if anybody comes to me and they're like digital decluttering, and I gave this as a live class a while back. And it was a situation where, I tried to make it clear in the course materials, if you are showing up for a list of, how-tos and tips and tricks, you are going to be so incredibly disappointed. And then frankly, I have to be technology agnostic as I present this, because I'm an Apple user. I have all Mac products. You may be Android and whatever. And the technology is changing while we're having this conversation. Technology has changed and software has changed, so like, for this to be a viable course, I could never get into total nitty gritty. Here's how you use your Gmail. We'll get into some of that because there is a lot of practicality, but for this, what I'm sharing to be viable 2 weeks from now, we got to get to the core stuff. And then you can apply that to no matter where the technology goes, or what email system you use, or whatever. If we go from Facebook to TikTok, you got to have those skills no matter what. So, I approach things, dogs are barking. I approach things very practically. I fancy myself a realist in that if there's room to be optimistic, I'm optimistic. If we need to be a little, hardcore pessimistic, I'll go there too. I'm a realist. Like, what is our situation? So I bring that to how I present this. And so it is practical, tactical, but it gets to the root. So.
Yeah, listen, when you're talking about saving time, making more space, I'm signing up for sure, because I look at my schedule all the time, and I look at the things that I have to do for my business, the things that I have to do for my kids, the things that I have to do for just, my personal life. And then the other piece of, the learning pieces and the writing pieces. And I never have the time to do it because there is clutter there. See, so you got your dog on your end, I got my dog on my end whining.
Real life, baby. That's how
Yes,
it works.
exactly right. But I have to say though that with all of this, the COVID stuff, I did get very busy with my business. I lost a lot of outside speaking gigs, but then all of a sudden I had these really interesting opportunities kick in that I wasn't expecting. And I streamlined a few things and I created some stuff. And so I found for me that although it was a little stressful in the beginning, having to figure out how I'm going to homeschool my little one, after a while though, I started to get my rhythm going. I still need work, but for me, I didn't stress too bad during this. I wasn't depressed about COVID, maybe a little anxious and annoyed with having to figure out how to school my little one who was driving me a little crazy. But but other than that, there's other people though, however, that really just really went off like the deep end during this time. So how do you think that, why is it especially important now for people to take the time to do this, like to declutter digitally and then beyond that?
Wow. So we came to this very unexpected circumstance, which is just by nature going to be overwhelming, unknown, very trying for all us humans. And then when you come to it and you're also dealing with this crazy digital clutter, that's just an added unnecessary burden when the circumstances were so hard. And now that we're working from home, everybody has to. And I feel that we're at a tipping point where this is going to become so much more the new, to use a trite phrase, the new normal.
Yes.
But I know many companies that will not be renewing or their leases on their office space because this has worked well for their company. So
Yes.
now just as I've been for over 20 years, since the year 2000, I've been working from home and reliant on technology. Welcome to my world, everyone, because now you're doing it too. So if ever there was a time to know how to really effectively manage your digital life, it is now, because it is suddenly more prevalent than ever. And it was quite prevalent already,
Yes.
So
Yes.
it is on us. So and it's really fascinating. When before COVID, I was in the thick of getting my online courses ready, creating my new website. I was so excited about it. And to be honest, when COVID hit, I thought things might slow down. And I was like, I'm going to rock this out, because I figured the world's going to slow down. I'm going to have more time. And hilariously, in digital marketing, I was working double shifts, basically. I would take a shower at 5 o'clock and get a cup of coffee to mentally shift into the next, however many hours I'd be working in the evening. It got so intense. And so I had to really delay a lot of things. But I realized, oh my goodness, I'm in the middle of this being more relevant than ever. And I actually added a component to my learning about virtual meetings, because I had the church that I go to, the folks reached out to me because they know I do all this digital marketing, and they were like, what do we do? Because everything has to go online now. We can't meet in person and all these classes. And so how do we manage all these Zoom meetings? We're already in Zoom fatigue. Zoom fatigue is a legit thing. And so I had to, put a framework around that. And I was like, wow, what a fascinating addition to what I'm having to offer. Because what we're doing right now, on occasion, totally cool and kind of amusing. But when you're doing it all the time, and you have the Brady Bunch squares up there, I mean, it's it really hurts the brain, and people just are worn out. So I've added that to what I'm sharing with folks. And again, some of that it is going to be very practical tips, like don't do the Brady Bunch squares, do speaker view, and it will really alleviate that pressure on your visual cortex, and you can experience a Zoom meeting in a much more pleasant way than having all those faces staring back at you. It's too much for us. It is truly fatiguing, so like just stuff like that. in where we are at the time we're recording this, wow, I feel so affirmed and thankful that I was already on that path to be able to
Oh,
share this with folks.
that's great. That's everything happens for a reason, you know?
It sure does.
Yeah. So when is your course going to be available?
So yeah, by the time that this airs and you got put it out in the world, so I'm looking by the end of, we're recording this in July of
Yes.
2020.
And I
So
think
the
this will be
website's
airing in
almost ready.
September. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay, good.
it should be live at that point. So
Okay, good.
yeah,
Okay. So all anyone would have, is it an ongoing course or is it run?
it's modules and you take it, and then I'm offering group coaching. So if you're part of the course for 6 months, we'll be connecting, not to be ironic, by Zoom, because that's going to be the best way. I so appreciate the role of Facebook in connecting folks, and I totally dig some Facebook Lives and such, but because I am a big believer in digital decluttering, I'm choosing to not do a Facebook group and do Facebook Lives. I want to manage it differently, because that's how I prefer to
Yes.
continue to manage my digital. So I mean, I'm present on Facebook, and people can find me, and I'll be doing Facebook ads and all that good stuff. But we will kind of go off that grid in terms of how we manage the ongoing coaching, that kind of thing. And then, you know, I mean, obviously, if somebody's in a unique situation and needs some one-on-one, I'm certainly open to that. That is
Yeah,
very
that's
cool.
good. You know, it all starts with awareness, which is very big mindfulness practice, and being aware of and knowing your truth, knowing what you can or can't handle, and being honest with yourself about it. We sometimes get in this headspace that we have to do it all. We have to have all these emails. We have to be on 24/7. We have to be accessible 24/7. And I've learned especially over the last few months, that it's okay to just say, I'm not available. Like, I'm not available between this time and this time. You're more than welcome to text me, email me, but I'm not going to respond to you until this time. And you know what I found very interesting is that when we do, take a stand like that, the people who are always saying, oh, I need you this, I need you that, all of a sudden they just have to accept it. Like with clients, I was always very available for clients. And then when I finally said, okay, I don't answer the phone or do any of these things between this time and this time, and all of a sudden it wasn't an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Contacted me, then all of a sudden it wasn't an issue. And I found that a lot of my clients also, over this time with COVID, they've been working from home, and some of these companies have been taking advantage of the fact that they're home, and they're saying, I'm working like 14-hour days. And I said, well, you know what? You've got to say to them, I'm going off, and I'm going, well, I don't know. And I'm like, it's you have to choose you.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first step, is just saying what I'm willing to be okay with and what I'm not. And then once even if you just honor yourself just a little bit, but after you get a little taste of it, then you're like, okay, you know what? That's not enough. I don't want to stop work at 8 p.m. I want to start work at 6 p.m.
Right.
And then little by little, you realize that you're worthy of the decluttering too. That
Mm-hmm.
this is not okay. Having 500 emails hit me, in 2 days because I chose to take 2 days off, and now I've got to deal with all this. I've got to figure this out.
Yes.
And so,
It's so interesting, and that's again totally. It's so cool that I didn't already have the course out in the world and live, because not only am I seeing people who are employees of companies being burdened by it, but I also really want to reach those decision makers at companies that maybe come from a more old school perspective. Because what I'm seeing a lot of in this season is, honestly, there's no better way to put it than a distrust. Like, are they really working? You know what I
yes,
mean?
yep,
So
I agree
and
with
trying to
you.
apply all those rules of a traditional workplace to a virtual workplace, and the rules
Yes,
really don't apply. So if I
absolutely.
can help the people who are kind of in the lead get to a better place with these digital tools, I think that's going to be hugely beneficial.
That's
It's
great.
such a hoot in my world. I've worked from home for at the time we're recording this, almost 23 years, and at the time that I started working from home, I was an employee of a company, and this was the year 2000. So I feel like a pioneer in the realm of, because a lot of people work from home and they're sales reps. So home base is like where they check email and then they're gone for a week on a business
Yes.
trip, sales trip. For me, I mean, I was truly working at home that whole time. And I just feel like everybody has shown up in my world. And I felt like when I first started working from home, like for like 3 years, no joke, and I was someone's employee and I kept an honest work day because they all did. And I knew I was in a cool situation. So I wanted to respect that if they needed me during those working hours, oh my gosh, I was nerdy about being available to them. But I still felt like I was kind of on permanent vacation just because I wasn't pulled into unnecessary meetings. I was more productive with my time because I didn't deal with interruptions. I didn't feel isolated because I was single at the time. I just demanded of myself to get out and have lunch with friends. And a lot of the work I do is interacting, through email or conference calls or whatever is needed. So I felt okay in that regard. And then now we are 23 years later in COVID, and I'm getting called to set weekly Zoom meetings because everybody else doesn't know what else to do with their time now. I like have more Zoom meetings 23 years into working from home because everybody else showed up and they're like, I'm used to having a lot of meetings, so now I'll
Yes.
just book them online. I'm like, this could have been an email. This could have been a few emails and we would have been done, but now we have to, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to teach you.
Oh my God, that's
This was
so
not
true.
necessary.
That's so
So,
true.
the irony.
So it's really been a pleasure talking with you. And how could everybody find you? And so this way, when we can get ready to join on in your courses.
Yes, the website is my name, irenewilliams.com. So pretty simple. So if you hop
Okay.
over there, you're welcome to sign up for my email list. I have a downloadable free audio class that you can enjoy. It's a hint at some of that foundational content that you'll get if you sign up for the course. And then obviously from that website, irenewilliams.com, you can register for the course. It'll be right there and waiting on you.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, Irene, thank you so much for coming on tonight. I really loved having you. It's just really, if you think that this is not that important, believe me, it really is, because when you really evaluate your life, or even just like look at people around you, don't even focus so much on the digital, just focus on any clutter. Clutter gets in the way. It prevents you from being the person that you're meant to be, because it's stifling you, and it's smothering you, and especially the digital. So if you open your email and dread it every time you do that, or if you log in and you're like, I can't deal with all this, there's too much there, then think about decluttering and contact Irene. Go on to her website and see how you can do this, because this isn't just going to be about emails. This is a huge piece of your life that you're going to get back. And could you imagine having more time to just do the things you want to do and not waste it on things that you don't need to do? So thank you, Irene, so much for coming, and you've been great. And I'll put all the information for Irene on the comments page. But again, thank you so much, everybody, for coming on. And as always, remember, be you, be real, and be extraordinary. I'll see you next week. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.